Let's go to another team that just confuses the absolutely hell out of me. Brandon McManus and the Denver Broncos. Yes, I said that correctly. Brandon McManus and the Denver Broncos found a way to get past the Bill Belichick, Cam Newton-led Patriots squad after not playing for 6 years? No, 2 weeks. After everything that went on with the COVID positive tests and not being able to practice in the facility or even going to the facility and meeting on Skype and yada, 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 whatever. It looked, the Patriots looked absolutely abysmal on offense. Their defense looked great. They were given very bad field position almost every single time out on the field. They held up staunchly. And the reason I say Brandon McManus in the Denver Broncos is because they scored not 1, not 2, not 3, but 6 field goals to beat the Patriots. That's right. They scored 18 points and beat the Patriots, who only scored 12.
Man, what? that is cringy to hear. That is so cringy.
It's so bad. Now, you have a specific question lined up. I'm going to change it here. Is this loss more on Cam Newton or on Josh McDaniels?
You know how I feel about Josh McDaniels.
I understand
and
that,
you're
but
trying
taking into everything that you've seen, taking into account everything you witnessed and you've been able to digest, Cam Newton did not look good, and he said so himself. I'm going to take him at his own word and say he looked absolutely abysmal, right? Was this just Cam playing terribly, or was this actually Josh McDaniels and his game plan, or lack thereof?
It's a mixture of both, and I think a lot of it has to do with the layoff and the inability to practice in person. When you can't do too much when you're sitting in a Zoom meeting and you're breaking down film. That can only get you so far. You need to then take what you've learned on tape and then produce it on the field. And that includes your scout team replicating the offense and the defense. And that includes your coaches figuring out on the spot during practice, all right, this play isn't working. Let's throw in this play. Let's see how this works against this look. They weren't unable to do any of that. Cam Newton was sick, was tested positive with COVID, and then came back from it, and maybe had one on-field practice in between testing positive and then playing the real game.
Just one.
So, taking all that into consideration, I think it's one of those fluke situations where the Patriots were just caught in a bad situation where they're unable to do much with what they're given. And I think we can't overlook the lack of receivers that Cam has to play with.
And, ding, ding,
ding. But that's not the entire thing, because this should have been a team. The Denver Broncos are a beatable team, and I don't care what offensive linemen the Patriots have to work with, what receivers they have to work with, what running backs. I don't care. It should have worked out. I think there was a complete breakdown with communication with Josh McDaniels. I think his play calling was horrible. I think that he is too conservative with the playbook. He always tries to hold on to some special plays for the playoffs that nobody has seen. And I wish he was more like Eric Bieniemy, where he doesn't care. He'll just draw up a new play because that's how creative he is. I don't see that with Josh. I don't see that ability to come up with something new on the spot, and he doesn't trust the team, let alone Cam, enough to put a new play on the field without testing it out first. So Josh has got to learn to trust Cam Newton more, trust this offense more, and also open up the playbook. Don't be scared to put yourself. The Patriots are always trying to mitigate risk, mitigate turnovers, and that hurts them when they're trying to score big plays, because there's only so much you can work with. That's a safe play. You're not so. It's frustrating because
I understand the frustration.
There's wrongdoing on both sides. It's easier for Cam to correct his. It's a mentality thing with Josh McDaniels.
it's not just a mentality thing with Josh McDaniels. The requisite talent that the New England Patriots have outside of the backfield is absolutely abysmal. When you take a look at this wide receiving core and this tight end group, you look at yourself and say, "What the absolute f is New England doing at these positions?" N'Keal Harry, who again I will say I've never been high on and I did not like coming out of the draft, is your number one wide receiver. He can't run a route correctly and he struggles to get open. He can't beat anybody with his speed and he can't create separation at the top of his routes. Julian Edelman looks like he's a 90-year-old man knees and can't move very well. And who else do you have? Damiere Byrd looks fine, but he's a wide receiver 3. I mean, he's done his job up to this point, but he's not a game breaker. He's not somebody you have to game plan for. There is nobody outside the numbers or on the line of scrimmage that you have to look at New England and say, that's a guy that can beat us offensively. There is no Rob Gronkowski. There is no Randy Moss. There is no Aaron Hernandez. There is nobody that can break a defensive game plan like they used to have. And that is where they're struggling right now. And the absolute lack of utilization from the tight end position has absolutely caused me to pull my hair out and go insane, which is why I wear a hat every single week. Because the fact remains that Ryan Izzo is the starting tight end for the New England Patriots. When they drafted 2 tight ends coming out of college, they've gotten a total of 0 targets up until this point. Dalton Keene, coming out of Virginia Tech, hasn't even seen the field. He's been healthy scratched every single week that he's been active on the roster. On top of that, Devin Asiasi gets blocking assignments as a pass-catching tight end. I don't understand what they are trying to do offensively. And then on top of this whole issue, the offensive line has been reshuffled 4 different times.
Each game.
They got away from the running game. They got away from the things that worked. And that's what boggles my mind the most. Josh McDaniels, Bill Belichick, they saw that the running game was working, and then they said to themselves, we're good. We don't actually want to win this game. I don't understand that mentality because the fact remains that you have Damian Harris, Rex Burkhead, and James White, who are really good running backs and can rotate throughout the backfield and continuously apply pressure to this defensive line. Instead, they kept dropping back. They kept putting the ball in Cam Newton's hands, and his ability or his lack of ability to get past the defensive line because they were up in his face every single play was a major issue. I think that there is a whole head-to-toe undressing that New England needs to do for themselves and say, these guys just ain't it. These guys need to be added more into the game plan. And Josh McDaniels, you need to figure your shit out or you're going to be on your ass. I really don't know where else to go. But New England, they are not the same team. They are not the team that I saw in the first couple of weeks or even before the whole COVID situation. I don't know who this team is, and I'm a little scared to see them throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah. I mean, the Patriots have had bad break after bad break, but that's no excuse for a Bill Belichick-led team. It's always next man up, and everybody's got to be ready, and that's on the coaches. That's on Bill, that's on Josh, that's on Gerard, that's on all of them. They all have to make sure their guys are ready to go. And you see a guy like Phillip Lindsay, who's coming back from injury, turf toe. He's been the backup all season, and then he explodes for a 100-yard game against this defense. And it's not all on the offense. The defense has also got to step up. I think that they have not been doing their job, and I know there's weapons that are missing that have opted out, and the weapons that Bill brought in this offseason, he piled on to the safeties and didn't build anywhere else. And the team is really suffering. Bill is the last 2 years he tried experimenting with no tight ends. How did that work out? Now he's experimenting with no linebackers or no tight ends again. He's
no big defensive linemen.
Yeah, all these experiments that Bill is trying to that Bill has going on, they're just not working out. He is still, I know there's people questioning him, mainly the freaking 98.5 The Sports Hub calling out Bill Belichick, wanting him to get fired, which is the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life.
Don't worry, those guys will get fired before Bill does.
I would expect that from WEEI, but not the Sports Hub. Anyway, Bill Belichick is still great at what he does, and I think he has been coaching at a higher level than he has in his coaching career. What I've seen from him has been absolutely amazing, but it seems like every season there's these 1 or 2 games where it seems like he just goes dumb. The entire team goes dumb. And it all falls on Bill at the end of the day. He's got to fix this team. And
he takes the blame. He does not run away from it either.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's not like, you're saying something that hasn't been said already. But the fact remains that New England has a whole hell of a lot of holes. And in my opinion, as much as I would love them to go and correct these holes, I believe that this just isn't the year for them. I don't think that they're going to be able to truly compete unless they get, unless they sell out. And even then, I don't want that to happen. So,
I mean, if you sell out,
are they going to turn this?
You run the risk of losing Cam. Cam's an unrestricted free agent.
He absolutely is. But it'll be interesting to see how this goes forward. I don't believe the Patriots will be active at the trade deadline. They may sign a couple free agents to help them maybe along the defensive line. But if you're a Patriots fan listening to this, just hold on, because, again, the bumpy ride we talked about in November is going to continue for the Patriots the rest of the way, especially with the schedule that they have coming up. It's going to be one hell of a season for us. And don't worry, things will start to get better, because the Patriots do own the majority of, I think they have the highest or the second highest cap space going into next season.
They have the highest.
The highest.
By
so
far.
It'll be very interesting. Yeah. Over 100 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's well over 100 million with all the opt-outs this year. Yeah.
Right. So you can guarantee that, if we go through this for 1 year, we're going to be able to retool. We're going to be able, I don't want to, as much as I would love a player like Julio Jones on the New England Patriots, he'd be a game breaker, one of those guys that can really help out our offense. I just don't believe that it's going to come to fruition, and nor do I think it should, because I believe we're in this for the long game. We're not in it for the short term.